I I don't exactly. I have a dry erase board that's behind me. It may not be completely visible there. If I pulled it up close, it would look like the scribblings of a madman. But I have like long-term projects split out, and then I have sort of this like bottom right corner that every time a phrase or a word or something catches my attention and could be like a title for a story, I'll kind of scrawl it in there in in dry erase marker, and I usually pull titles from there. And sometimes there's not a story attached to it yet. Sometimes I'll get a story idea and I'll take one of those titles to attach. And then sometimes the title kind of has an idea that hasn't percolated yet, and I'll do that. Beyond that, I don't really keep a lot of notes. Um, I'm planning a little bit ahead on this novel because of the nature of the chapters and some things like that. But my notes were pretty detailed in the beginning and have gotten very scant at this point in the story. I write a zombie series that's up to about book 7, and that one's pretty well planned out and outlined and things like that. But in terms of ideas, it really is just titles, and sometimes the title is sort of the idea, and I'll put it down that way, and use it if I need it and that kind of thing. But as a general habit, beyond that, I don't really keep very much. I didn't even used to do that. Like I would just try to come up with stories from whole cloth whenever I needed to write them. Um, but that's kind of my equivalent, I guess. And so it would essentially be the same thing. It's just the title, in a way, is sort of a placeholder for the story. So that's how I go about doing that. I think it is a good idea. I know a lot of authors who don't do that. There's a friend of mine named Armand Rosamilia. He doesn't do that. He used to, and then he went back to look. He used to keep them on a disc, and I think it was a floppy disk. That's how long ago it was. And he went back to look, and either it didn't make sense or it wasn't that great of an idea or that kind of thing. So from his viewpoint, he decided that if the idea stuck with him long enough for him to sit down and start writing it, like a couple days or so, then he knew it was kind of a story. If it sort of evaporated before he got home and could write it down, then he figured it wasn't that great of an idea anyway. I don't have a good enough memory for that, so I typically, again, will use that dry erase board and will put down just either a couple words or a phrase or a title that kind of holds the place of the idea, because all that stuff doesn't stay in my head. So if I have like little reminders there, and a lot of times the stories aren't ready, I'll look over that entire board and not see a single thing that inspires me, or there'll just be one thing or the newest thing. But then I'll go back later and come back to something, and it's had time to percolate, and I kind of have a better story built around that notion at that point. So I know authors that make a good argument to not do it at all, but I guess like one quadrant of my dry erase board is the closest I have to a journal.